All right, and I believe the last question we have here, which is also very recurring, is there a way that you suggest that teachers set as homework for students to practice speaking outside of the classroom environment?
Yeah, it's a really good question. One way you can do it is to actually get them to write conversations. And even though they're writing, they're still thinking about speaking. So it might be go home and write a conversation between you and two friends about some music that you love. Or what you can also do is just little things like go home, record a 2-minute video of you talking about your favourite singer or your favourite band and tell me why you love them and how you got into them. Send me that. After that, it gets more difficult because in order to have them, you could do with a friend record a conversation. The problem with all of those things is, as a teacher, you want to listen to it all and correct it. You've got time to do that on top of your 35 hours that you're teaching every week. You want to watch 15 videos of kids talking about their favourite music and give them all feedback on it. So that does get problematic. I think the other thing you can do is just encourage them to record, to keep little kind of digital portfolios of their own speaking. And they might say, are you going to correct it? And you just say no. Are you going to look at it? No. What's it for? Well, it's for you so that you can track your own progress. The way I think about this is when my wife first moved to the UK in the 90s, she used to read a lot in English and she'd always highlight words she didn't know. And then years later, she'd go back and say, I'm just going to read that Alice Walker book again. And she'd look and go, oh my God, at some point I never used to know this word. And it was like, well, obviously at some point you didn't know it. Yeah. You haven't always known it. It's like you learned it.
That's how you know it now.
Yeah, but shit, I didn't know it then when I read that book. I think it's useful to be able to have some way of going back and seeing, wow, that was me 3 months ago. And then to be able to compare that with now. So I think what you can do is just to give each student a kind of digital portfolio homework and say, for homework, I want you to record yourself talking for 1 minute about the person you get on with best in your family. And then in a year's time, say to them, go back and watch those early videos of yourself. Are you better? And they'll go back and go, oh my God, I can't believe that was me. So you can see the improvement yourself. You don't need me to correct it or give you feedback on it. You can see the improvement yourself and you can see that trajectory. So I think that's one way you can get them to practice doing some speaking without burdening yourself as a teacher. Because, how much free time has every teacher got and how do you want to spend it? Most of us got social lives and partners and, other things we want to be doing outside of just teaching all the time. But it is good to get them to do that. And I think that's where technology can really play a part. Another thing they can do is, I've got a Russian friend, Anita Modestova. She's my Russian teacher. She does this brilliant thing with her students. So she started this because she was using one of our books, Outcomes. And there was a listening or a reading about people who'd missed airplanes, missed flights. And her student said, this is rubbish. They've made this up. Nobody misses flights. And Anita went, no, people do miss flights. No, I don't believe it. So she went on Facebook and she wrote in English, my student doesn't believe people miss flights. Has anyone missed flights? And loads of people said, yeah, me. And she then messaged people and said, can you record a 2-minute listening of what happened for you when you missed the flight? She then gave these little listenings. She's like, look, these are 8 people I know through social media. Here are their stories. And the student just had this kind of like personalized input. So I think the other thing you can do is you can encourage them to kind of, go on social media, record yourself, say, either, so go home, tell a story about a flight you missed, put it on social media and ask a question. Maybe the answers you get will be in Portuguese, it doesn't matter. Or if you don't believe it or you want to make life easier for yourself, just say, hi guys, I'm learning English. Does anyone have any stories of missing a flight? Please tell me. And people will either write it, which is kind of speaking written down anyway, or they'll record a little video if the person asks them to. So I think it's trying to get them to kind of recognize that they have these affordances, these opportunities available to them through technology, and trying to get them to kind of take advantage of some of those a little bit in English. I notice on Instagram, there's people do things like My English Diary, and they record themselves every day just speaking a little bit of English and kind of going, hi guys, it's me. I'm still learning English. Today I want to tell you about my football team. You know, and you do 30 seconds of kind of going, this is my team. We're rubbish. Thank you. What's your team? Just that, you know, just something like that where they get used to presenting themselves in English a bit more and realizing that they can interact with other people with their imperfect English.
And the idea of sharing a story just for the sake of sharing a story.
Yeah.
It's something that happens naturally. People
Of
are on
course it does, man.
YouTube, people are on Instagram, people are sharing their stories all the time. Like, you don't have to be asked to share a story. You can share a story.
Exactly. And, you know, like we were saying right at the beginning, outside of language teachers who obsess about this stuff, most of the time, most people are listening to the message, not the grammar, and not judging your accent. So some of the best conversations I've ever had outside of the classroom have been with, like, you know, guys I've met in bars in Russia, and they tell me stories of their fight with a bear out in the wilderness. And later I realized they didn't use anything apart from the present simple in that whole story. But the story itself is so mad, and you're like, seriously? What happened? So bear is, I am go forest. Grammatically, it's all over the place, but I don't remember the bad grammar. I remember, bloody hell, that crazy guy in the bar in Omsk who had a fist fight with a bear. And I remember the story in my own language. And if I'm retelling that story, I put it back into my own language. But I wasn't listening to whether or not he was using correct grammar, because it's a guy who fought a bear. You don't argue with someone who's, you don't correct the grammar of someone who's fought a bear.
This story just needs to go public.
And so I think anything we can do like that, that's where technology really comes into its own for me, in the opportunities that it makes available to students away from the language classroom.
That's amazing.
You know, which is how people can sit and watch this kind of thing.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Not only is this great context, it was also a great conversation. If we weren't recording this, I would also be extremely happy to be having this conversation, because it's something that not only me, but I think most teachers love to talk about. And thank you very much.
Thank you. And, you know, keep in touch.
Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.